Why stick around? You're a rock star. You're not supposed to be 80. You're supposed to die at 30 and 40, and then your music's supposed to live on.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
Smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro. Today we got one of my favorites.
Mine too. Yannis Pappas. Okay, so we start off every podcast by asking, what's the first music you remember loving as a kid?
First music I remember loving as a kid was probably the Sesame Street theme song. Yeah. And thankfully it's not an adult song, because that means there was probably some adult around me who shouldn't have been. It's a good thing I didn't say, like, hey, my first song was Neil Young. That means somebody was obviously watching me unsupervised.
Right. And that's a very honest answer. We've heard some people, if it's cool, your first song you remember loving is cool, then we know you're lying right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be weird if I was like, hey, my first memory is of Neil Young, cigarette smoke, and then I black out, and I just remember there was like a priest there, and then I don't know. Next question.
So, Sunny Days, that song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever
Smiles away till the end is near? Oh, do I remember it different? The apocalypse is coming, kids. We're gonna distract you with some puppets because there's a Cold War going on with Russia and AIDS and crack. That's the era I grew up in.
Who was your favorite Sesame Street character? Mine was.
Oh, you got to go. You got to go. That's very progressive of you. Those were two gay guys living in. They just put themselves in separate beds for the cameras. But when the cameras were off, Bert and Ernie just hopped into bed and just blew each other. That was what happened off camera. I was more of a Groucho guy because he was always the underdog, and people always didn't like him because he lived in a garbage can.
Yeah.
And so I was always partial to Groucho.
And now he's in like a recycling bin or something.
Yeah. Now he's Oscar the Grouch. Did I call him Groucho? Oscar the Grouch.
I thought
Sorry.
you were way back.
Yeah. I just came from the dentist. I got some happy gas. So
nice. Perfect.
You know what it is.
Are the teeth
good? Oscar the Grouch. Yeah, now now you have to he's got to go compost.
Okay, so what kind of music do you remember your mom and dad listening to around the house?
Well, my dad he just loved classical music and opera is what he would play all the time. And I don't remember my mother ever listening to music. She wasn't that joyous. So it was mostly classical I heard my parents listening to. My brother's record collection was like Cat Stevens, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. He grew up in the 70s. So his record collection is what I kind of got. Michael Jackson, early Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, when music was really good. I think your grandpops, I think there was I had one of those albums. He's one of the greats. Yeah. And it was like it was records. There were records, you'd put them on. I'd put the records on. I'd put the Beatles' Don't Let Me Down B-side, which was a B-side. That was a B-side song. That was a great song. I'd put that on. I'd smoke Marlboro lights out the windows and think about girls in class that would make me hard under the desk.
So you grew up in Brooklyn, right?
I did.
So at some point you had to had to get into hip hop.
That was what I grew up on, really, was hip hop. It's amazing that my generation, like, I'm in my 40s, so I remember when hip hop started. Like, I remember when it started going like quasi mainstream. I remember as a white kid in school in Brooklyn when fat laces started, people would take out their laces and replace them with fat laces. Yep. And when the Fat Boys album came out and Dougie Fresh and stuff like that, like early rap, I remember that. I remember breakdancing and how that was just this new thing, and it was so cool. And so I would say I mostly grew up on rap. I didn't even know who Janis Joplin was till I went to college, you know? And, you know, like, so Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, all that stuff, that old good rock stuff. I didn't know who they were till I went to college.
Yeah, and you're speaking my language because I'm 54 and I grew up, was introduced to all that early hip hop. Dougie Fresh was one of the first things. The flip side, Lottie Dottie, that just blew my mind.
Lottie Dottie, we like to party. We don't cause trouble. Don't bother nobody with. Yeah.
Yeah, I can still do the thing from top to bottom, but it was wild back then because
when we first met, actually, we did they have these things here in Nashville where you do a song of yours and then a song, like a cover song that everyone knows. What do they call, like a 1-in-1?
Yeah.
And we had done
acoustic
that.
guitars.
Yeah, acoustic guitar. You just get up there. There's a mic. It's really boring, actually. But JB did a song that he wrote. I think you did the Walmart song, and then you did Lottie Dottie from top to bottom.
That's right. Yeah, I just made up some chords behind it. But it was wild back then because every new hip hop band that came out, like UTFO and all those, everything was completely different because it was so brand new. So like every new rap group you heard, you're like, holy shit, listen to that. Listen to that. Wild. Public Enemy comes along. You're like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it was amazing because it started out as like a New York sound. And then, Philly came in, and then slowly other parts of the country came in. And there was movements. Yeah, there was like, then the native tongue movement came in with De La Soul and Black Sheep and Tribe Called Quest. And that was like a little bit of a different sound, Jungle Brothers. And then it progressively got more violent and more gangsta, as humans tend to do.
Yeah. And the Beastie Boys always get left, not always, but you have to give them their credit too. 3 Jewish guys from New York, that their records were like the whole hip hop, like every record sounded completely different. All of a sudden they're playing their instruments and going back to their punk roots and shit. Those guys, I watch a lot of reaction videos of young black dudes hearing the Beasties for the first time and watching their minds get blown. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I remember back then, when like, there was no internet, and the first time I heard the Beastie Boys, I didn't think they were white. Like the same thing with Janis Joplin. When I heard her, I was like, she's white, because I heard it first, and my only reference was black people rapping. And yeah, the Beastie Boys were incredible. That License to Ill album, Brass Monkey, that whole thing, it was incredible. And they grew up around me, and I remember me and my friends got Ad Rock's phone number, and we called and spoke to his mom. That was back in the day. We looked up his phone number and called and spoke to his mom, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like 7 or 8, and I just wanted to call him. But yeah, they were, Run DMC put them on, and they were really the first guys you ever saw white who were rapping, and they were great and musical, as you said. They evolved, and their music changed, and they were just incredible.
Now, what was the first concert you remember going to?
First concert I went to was Hootie and the Blowfish.
Oh.
When I was in college, yeah. So I went to Hootie and the Blowfish. I really liked Hootie and the Blowfish. My music taste is very eclectic, and I love Darius Rucker's voice.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with Hootie and the Blowfish, and that was the first concert I went to when I was in college. That just lets you know how not music, what we didn't grow up. Oh, I'm sorry. The first concert I went to was Rap Mania in Harlem in the 90s. And that was incredible. That my Puerto Rican girlfriend took me to Rap Mania at the Apollo in Harlem, and that was incredible. It was like Third Base was there, Slick Rick. It was incredible. Big Daddy Kane. But then my first concert where there was actual instruments was Hootie and the Blowfish in probably '96 in DC.
Yeah, Darius Rucker's cool. I emailed him and asked him if I could send him our CD, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to hear it." I just randomly,
awesome. I just kind of like talking
email.
to Ad Rock's mom.
Yeah, I just found his email online and sent it to him.
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah, he was a cool dude.
So
he's great. Now he's a country star. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, at what point were you a comedy fan as a kid, or was that later in life?
No, wait. What's the first comedian you remember loving?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the first one was Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy Delirious. Like a lot of comics, it was Eddie Murphy Delirious. I didn't know, believe it or not, my buddy Nate Bargatze, who actually lives in Nashville, and me and him came up together, and we were really good friends. And we actually came up together, and it's great to see how great he's doing. But I remember me and him bonding over the fact that we both kind of didn't know stand up was a thing that you could do and not be a movie star. Like, we both had that same impression. Like, we had no idea there was like comedy clubs and comedians touring the country. Because, back then you only had access to like Robin Williams and Eddie Murphy. And I just thought those guys were actors who were like putting on shows. I didn't know they were stand-ups. And then from stand-up, they went on to TV. Billy Crystal. I had no idea. Seinfeld was one of the first guys who pulled the curtain back and was like, I'm a stand-up doing a sitcom. But before that, I had no idea that there was even a thing as stand-up comedy. So it was really Eddie Murphy. And I just knew that as a kid. We all knew that. And then it was Andrew Dice Clay. That album got really big when he was big. And we would pass it around on cassette, and we'd play it on cassette. And that was really it. It was very limited. Later in life, I found out Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners was a stand-up. Like, it was just, I just thought of him as a actor, as a funny actor, from the 50s. Like, I didn't even know stand-up was a thing until probably Seinfeld. Seinfeld was the one I was like, oh, there's a thing. He's in a club. It started to tip me off that there was like live comedy.
Yeah, I was the same way. Like, I was a huge fan of Sanford & Son as a kid. Had no idea Red Fox was a legendary comedian. Then you read about all the dudes that he brought in on the show with him were comedians too, from the Chitlin circuit or whatever. And he was just loading up the cast with his boys. And I was like, that's one of the coolest guys ever. Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's how it felt. Like, wow, like these guys are stand-ups. What is stand-up? It was, now, it's all over the internet and everyone's aware of it. But back then you would only see, Delirious in a movie, or you'd get a cassette passed around. Like, as a kid, there was no access or exposure to it.
Yeah, every era had like
The
one
Tonight Show.
giant, like Steve Martin was like Dice Clay when I was a little kid, because he was a comic that was gigantic. But no, to your point, you didn't think about him working a fucking club. Turns out he played here in town at the Exit Inn, one of our rock clubs way back in the 70s. But, my first exposure to him was King Tut. And then Let's Get Small later, but the Wild and Crazy Guy, I guess, was his big record. And yeah, you don't even know. And I remember that record was weird because the first half sounded like he was in a club. And then like the second half, all of a sudden they just faded in this huge crowd noise. Like he had gotten big at some point during the making of this double record. So he's like, does a little joke, and all of a sudden he goes, and then he's in an arena, it always tripped me out as a kid. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. He was one of the biggest acts in the country. And I just knew him as a movie star. I remember my brother did have the Richard Pryor record, Bicentennial N-Word, which you obviously couldn't do. But you just didn't, as a kid, I didn't make the connection. I just felt like Richard Pryor is a movie star and he's doing a show. Like, I never thought there was a live scene where he was working stuff out in small rooms, and there was no YouTube videos to go watch of that. So, yes, stand-up was something I progressively became more aware of. And then when I graduated college, I was aware of it as an option. And I was like, wow, I better be able to do this, because I really can't do I'm like almost handicapped with anything else.
Did you do any kind of performance in high school, like theater or acting or band?
Not really. Just in the classroom. I was class clown. I got kicked out of school. I was always entertained. I was the prototypical class clown who couldn't stop. I was very popular, and all I wanted to do was make kids laugh, and I would constantly get in trouble with teachers. And so, yeah, but nothing formally. I wasn't in like a Bertolt Brecht play or whatever. I never did Shakespeare. I couldn't memorize the lines. I have zero discipline. I can't get skinny. I have zero discipline. I don't brush my teeth probably once every other day. Anything that's a routine, I just can't do. I'm handicapped. I'm so undisciplined.
Did you ever write a song?
I wrote a rap. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
I do want to hear it. Yes.
It goes like this.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm terrible at beatboxing.
I'm Caucasian, definitely not Asian. I don't know why I made this. Call me Puerto Rican and I slice you like Jason. Basin on the microphone. So if you eat them Goya beads, leave me alone. Cause I'm rated X, that's right, I'm restricted. Try to mess with that and you'll be convicted of the worst crime you ever seen. So if you're Puerto Rican, go eat some Goya beads. Yeah, baby, go write that petition. Yanski's coming at you with the Caucasian mission. I must be from like 12 and it's not politically correct.
It's better than my first song.
And that was it.
It is. It's better than my first song.
So I'm always curious. So you mentioned you had an older brother. Did I assume he's not a comic or whatever. So what did he go on to do? Like, I'm always curious because when you tell your parents you're going to be in a band or whatever, they're kind of like, yeah, like, did you have a brother that was doing anything and then you had to follow in their footsteps or have to have that uncomfortable?
He's a doctor or something.
Yeah, my brother's a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer.
There you go.
My parents were both lawyers. My mother was a human rights lawyer. She worked for the UN for a little while. So they were all lawyers. And so I was the black sheep by a long stretch. And yeah, I mean, it's funny though, because every generation kind of we disappointed the parents. Like my grandparents, were immigrants. My mother immigrated here after World War II, but my dad's grandparents did what the Greeks do, and they opened a restaurant. They had a diner. And then when my father wanted to go to college, my grandfather was upset with him. Like he was like, "Why are you going to college?" My father played football, and he's like, "What's football?" He was like, "Come take the restaurant." I don't understand why you're going to more school. Like we're in America to make money. And then my father, disappointed him. And then me, I became a comedian. They did not understand that at all. So it was like, and I would explain to my dad, I was like, this is like the same thing you went through with your dad. It's like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it big. One day I'm going to be performing at Bananas in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. You'll see there'll be a cardboard banana behind me and I'll get a check with a banana on it. I'm going to do good.
Very small check. So I take it that they weren't listening to Carlin and shit around the house or anything like that.
No, yeah, they weren't. My parents had me like back then, very late. My dad was like 48, my mom was like 43, and so yeah, they were a little older. They weren't boomers. They were like my dad fought in Korea, so they were just older. They were like. Yeah, they weren't. My brother was more the one aware of like, Carlin and Pryor, but he wasn't a big comedy fan either. He was experimenting with sexuality and, licking on some dicks.
Nice.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny too.
Yeah.
So how did you get started at comedy? Like what's the first thing that like kind of clicked and go, what, fuck it, I'm going to give this a shot.
It was, I graduated college and,
what'd you study in college? What'd you go to college?
I studied
for?
American Studies and History. So it was just
that makes sense. We were talking about this today. Let me posit this to you before you continue. There's something about comedians that or it seems like an unreal proportion of you guys know a lot about American history and world history. We were just going down the list like Shane Gillis and Matt, you, Tim Dillon, Colin Quinn. There's just everybody seems to know a whole lot about. Is that true? Am I off there?
Everybody's into history.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with being a satirist. When your job is to satirize the zeitgeist, you kind of want context for that. And so I think there's a natural inclination towards learning the context, which is history, how we arrived here, how it all happened. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's sort of I think there's probably a natural inclination for comedians to want to be interested in history, to just sort of have a better understanding of why things are the way they are now, so you can properly satirize and have a better understanding.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Or it could be that just history buffs are bigger smartasses than
now. Why
could be that too.
I'm not sure.
Why is every comedian or most comedians into fighting and MMA? What's that about? It's either history or MMA. You're obsessed with one or the other.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a type of comic. There's a lot of comics who aren't, There's a lot of comics, you'll find that crowd. They're into something else. They're into liberal politics all the time.
There's a few of those out there.
Yeah. I
so
think
not
I think it has to do with, there is sort of a lot of similarities between fighting and stand-up comedy. Like if you look at all the jargon, it's very similar. It's very violent. I'm killing, I'm crushing, I died up there. The crowd is tough.
Ate a bag of dicks. Maybe that's not the best one.
Punchlines, it's very violent punchlines. You go up there alone, in a fighting in a UFC match or a boxing match, you go in alone and you either get knocked out or you succeed with punches. So I think there's something to do with some sort of, we feel a kindred spirit,
Punchline.
The stress levels are the same. It's very anxiety inducing, music, you have a band, you have music, you have an arrangement, you know what you guys are going to do. There's a large part of stand-up comedy where you don't know what's going to happen. It's live. Yeah. A lot of the jokes sometimes are told differently. A lot of the things happen on the fly. You don't know how the crowd's going to be. Mm-hmm. And it's new stuff they haven't heard. You don't know if you're going to offend someone. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's kind of like a fight.
Yeah. And we've talked about that. You guys are literally writing in front of people. Like we would never go up with a half-finished song and like a half verse and a chorus and play that and go, we're working on it. Sounds good. You guys are literally writing in front of people and taking the input right there.
Yeah. I mean, there's two types. There's definitely just two types. I haven't found a third type. There really are two types of comedians and two types of writing processes. One is before, like, your Mark Normans and your Sam Morrells. Those guys craft those jokes before, and then they go up on stage and they try them and they write. Those guys are machines and they're great. And then there's guys like I am who just go up with a premise and just craft it like a sculpture, show by show, audience by audience, with the collaboration of the audience. And it's a lot more conversational. Nate's the latter too. Nate will go up with an idea and just riff it and then craft it, show by show.
Yeah. It's like a difference between, a pop band and a jam band. These guys are tied in, well, nowadays to a computer. And then the jam bands go out and like, are people screaming or are they sitting down? They just sort of work the crowd and take the acid and move along.
The lead could go on forever or
they
not.
Often do.
Yeah.
For sure.
Wait, so to be fair, what kind of stereotypes do you have against musicians? Like, what do you think that we're obsessed with?
Musicians?
Yeah. Or singers, musicians.
Yeah. Drugs. You guys like drugs a lot.
Yeah.
You guys are into drugs and that's appreciated. I appreciate that because that's what, like Bill Hicks said, that all the good fucking songs, you guys were hammered. Like, I don't like this new sobriety thing. I like my rock stars to go hard and die. Why stick around? You're a rock star. You're not supposed to be 80. You're supposed to die at 30 and 40, and then your music's supposed to live on. I mean, this fucking sober, I had a cup of coffee and then I did yoga shit. Get it out of here. I want to get back to fucking dying in bathtubs and just passing out on stage. I want to go to a show and be like, it's a real toss up. Either they're going to be coherent or they're not going to be coherent. Bring back the Jim Morrisons of the world and everyone dies in a fucking bathtub in Paris. That's the way rock stars are. You're supposed to die choking on your own vomit or get hit by a fucking car or a truck like an Allman Brother and die like a rock star.
Or a plane crash, for God's sake.
Or a plane crash, God damn it. Yeah. Stop living till 80.
It is true, though, because, I mean, we still will have a drink and a smoke every now and then. But in rock and roll, much like comedy, I've noticed that there's not as many drinkers in comedy as there used to be.
Everybody's
like the whole thing is sober. I mean, you still got Stanhope, you got Bert, you got some of those guys out there, but there's a whole lot of you guys that don't hit it like that. And it's the same with us. I don't know what happened with us. Not us personally,
Not
but
us.
our crew. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Stanhope is just having a duel with death. He's duel. It's like a fencing match against death, and he just is still in it. Everybody else is sober, but they didn't just like always be sober. I mean, there's a story that comes with that. I mean, I remember Dan Soder popping into a bathroom while I was taking a piss and throwing up blood over my shoulder and then doing the worm on the floor without his shirt on. on a dirty bar floor and going like, then you're torn as a friend. You're going like, hey man, should I have a talk with this guy because he's got a problem, or should I let it go because he's a fucking good hang? So, it's a thing. I remember when Joe List fucking, shit in a woman's closet because he thought it was a bathroom, and then went and did a comedy contest in Seattle because he had to catch a flight that morning with shit dried on his pants. After he had shit in the closet of a girl whose floor he slept on after he broke her coffee table. So I remember going on tour with Nate, just to give you, he's sober now, but me and Nate went on tour once. We got so hammered in Springfield, Massachusetts. He had put his card down. This is back when we didn't have any money. So he put his card down at the bar, and we got so hammered that all the college kids that came to drink with us after the show, they heard him put his card down because he was so drunk. And they just were ordering drinks on his tab all night. So when the tab came, it was $1,400.
Jesus.
So, I mean, the stories go on. I remember one time it was with Nate. Me and Nate did a tour together right before Obama won. We did a tour in 2008 called the Two Faces of America Tour. And I remember once I was so hammered in Vermont. I think it was some college we did in Vermont. And I remember we pulled into a drive-through with these people we were with. That's what happens. You guys know, you just meet some people. You're with people. We're in a car with people. They could have been people who killed. Who knows? We were in the car with people. I don't remember who they are. And we were at the drive-through. It's snowing. There's like 4 feet of snow. I was passed out in the back. And while we were driving through the drive-through, I just woke up, had no idea where I was, and just thought I needed to get out of the car and walk. So I just got out of the car and just started walking into the woods. And Nate was just barreled over laughing because he just saw me walking out. And he's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "What? What?" I had no idea where I was. I was just walking out like a fucking Native American does when it's time to die. So, I mean, the stories are endless. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad everybody got sober, but now it's not as fun.
It's always sad when a good one guy, I got a buddy like that he clearly, it's a good thing he quit drinking, but he was such a great drunk. He never got out of hand. He would just get this blackout face and start smiling. And he would try to talk, and he would realize he couldn't talk, and it would make him laugh in his blackouts. Just a really great drunk, but he drank a lot. Yeah. So what was the tour with Nate like? Were you guys flying these dates? Or were you far enough along in your career? Were you taking planes? You're still renting cars? And
no, this was driving. Yeah. This particular tour was in like Maine, Vermont. We did a bunch of colleges, and we were driving. Yeah. It was hours and hours in the car and making jokes. And, there's some of the best memories I have. It's just so much. We it was so pure. We were, I remember driving to, Columbus, Ohio for $150, and you lose money the whole way, but you're just so excited to be able to get some stage time. And I drove to Florida once for like $100. I mean, I did gigs like that for years, performing in bars, and I got attacked on stage. I punched 2 people on stage.
What?
It was just those were wild times, where you're trying to come up and learn how to do stand-up.
Were you, at the time, did you drink before the shows, or did you save the partying for after?
Oh, yeah. I had this room. A lot of comics will get like a room. That was like the goal back then, was to get a room. So like a bar on an off night, like a Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, where you can invite comics down and consistently get stage time. So I had like a pretty legendary one in Brooklyn called Bar 4. Hannibal Buress had one. Sean Patton, another comic, had one called Cabin. And then I had Bar 4 on Sundays. And mine was kind of notorious for being like the wildest. Like, that's where fights happened. And I would go up there with a beer in my arm, and like I would get so animated. I would do like 40 minutes between comics drunk, and I'd get so animated, beer would be spilling everywhere when I was pontificating off the stage. And it was a wild room. I used to joke about that. It was like jail rules. And I would be hammered. It would there was a photo booth there. Like people used to hook up in the photo booth. It was just a mess.
What year was
This
this?
was it ended in 2012. 2012. It went for 5 years. So it kind of ended a couple months before I took this like TV job in Miami in 2013.
Nice. So let's back up a little bit. What's like? You chose to be I don't think we ever got to how you decided to be a comic, and like, what was your first step? Like, I'm going to do this, and then this is what I got to do.
Yeah, I remember going into this local paper. It's a pretty famous New York paper called The Village Voice.
Yep.
And I was just flipping through it, and I had this idea that I was going to try to be a comedian. And even though I didn't really know what to do or how to start, and there was this ad. This one day I remember I was walking home at like 5 a.m. after hanging out with my friends, and I stopped by this like Korean food market, 24 hours, and I was just flipping through this Village Voice, and I saw this ad like, do you want to start being a comedian? Take this class. And so I called it and did it. It was one of the only times I was proactive in my life. And that's how I started. I took this class. Actually, Nate took the same class. A few other comics. Jim Gaffigan took this class. It was called American Comedy Institute. Carmen Lynch, another comic, took it. I'm trying to think. There's a bunch. And this guy, Steven Rosenfield, helped you craft this 5 minutes. And then it was a bringer show at Caroline's. And then you brought as many people. It was kind of like a scam. But, you know, it got you started.
Right.
You know, you invite all your friends. He makes all the money. But you get 5 minutes on stage. And I remember the first 5 minutes I did. I crafted that 5 minutes. He helped me. And then when I got on stage, I remember my arms were numb. I was having an anxiety attack. And I couldn't remember any of my jokes. And I just kept repeating, thank you, over and over again. Because I couldn't remember anything. I was so freaked out. I had so much stage fright until I heard the audience laugh because I kept repeating, thank you. And once I heard that first laugh, it just all came back. It relaxed me and I got into it. And I remember thinking when I got off, like, I finally found something. It just felt like it was just this weird feeling of like, this is where I belong. This is what I'm going to do. It felt I loved it. It felt like I didn't know what time was. Like when I'm on stage doing a show, I have no idea how much time has passed. It's just like 15, it could be 40, it could be an hour. I have no clue. I'm so lost in it. And I think it means you love it. When you lose time, you know, you ever hook up with someone and it's so good, like you don't even know, you end up on different parts of the bed. You don't know what's going on, and the chemistry is so strong. You don't know if it's been 10 minutes, an hour. And that's how I felt with comedy. I started fucking comedy. And I love fucking.
Making love to comedy.
15 minutes an hour. He's doing work too.
Hey, my grandpa tells a story about about fucking his music. No, about, the first time he performed, he was a kid in church, you know. And
by perform, what do you mean?
He was fucking the church. No, he was gonna play guitar. Obviously, duh, he plays guitar. So, but he got so nervous that he just stood there and his nose started bleeding. So the very first time he had to perform, his nose was bleeding, and then he told some.
And he just started going, "Thank you, thank you."
Yeah,
thank you.
he did the same thing. No, he told some sort of poem that has something like "Stop looking at me. I don't want you looking at me anyway," or something. You know, it's just this cute little poem. But
I'm surprised they didn't just kill him back in those days. He's standing on the altar, and his nose
just starts bleeding.
Drag him out and beat him.
Right. They probably thought like, he was stigmata was happening or something.
Exactly.
The first time we played in town, I thought I was going to throw up or have diarrhea on the stage. I barely walked up. I mean, like my feet felt like heavy lead.
She had never played a show before, and I've set us up a show.
Not like this, not like with the band. You know, I had done like show choir in high school.
But the first time with fronting a band and singing, it happened to be a benefit for a buddy of ours. But anyway, half of Deep Purple was there, so the place was packed.
Deep Purple played after us. We opened for Deep Purple on the very first show I ever played.
But we go up to play our songs, and Raelyn stand at the side stage, and we're up there plugged in, and she's just standing there staring. I'm like, come on.
It's time. It's time. I'm like, no.
Was that your first time in front of people when you did the?
Yeah.
So
it's frightening. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the thank you approach. I'm going to maybe steal that and do that. I'll just say thank you if I get nervous in front of people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I think eventually people will laugh or something. You know, because it's just, I don't know what that is. It's like the longer something goes on, it becomes funny. and then it becomes trite, and then it becomes funny again. It's a weird thing.
Like a Family Guy fighting sequence, the chicken. It's hilarious. And it's,
and
and it gets funnier.
Yeah. Comedy and music always fascinated me because, they both kind of represent these two mystical things that there's no real scientific explanation for. Music makes you feel a certain way. Like, you feel like goosebumps and you just feel things. And it's like, what is feelings? Like, what is that? Why is this making me dance? What is dancing? Why am I moving to this rhythm? What is this? And then comedy, it's laughter. It's like, what the hell's that? Like, what's a laugh? Why? Where does that come from? What is it? It's they're the two things that we're closer to God than any priest.
Hey man,
Yeah.
It's also
we're not fucking kids.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a good start too.
Yeah.
Well, most of us. There's a few of us who've been accused.
On both sides.
At least in New York, we got a clean record right now.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
New York's up about. I mean, LA scene is down a few accusations.
But music and comedy are also the only things that everybody's opinion is correct, because you can't tell them that they're wrong for not liking your comedy or not liking your. Now, if they say you're a shitty guitar player, well, it's still just opinion, doesn't mean. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you're right about whatever you think about whatever you're watching, and you gotta accept that when you sign on to do either one. That some people just aren't gonna like your shit. Everybody's not gonna like it, but you don't like everything.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's you can't say, hey, this is bad or good or wrong or right. It's expressive. Yeah,
just gotta take it. So when you started, you mentioned Nate, but right when you start, was there a crew that guys were running around just starting out together and basically hitting all the same clubs and that kind of thing?
Yeah, Nate, Soder, bunch of other guys, but those were two guys who've obviously done real well that I can think of. Mark Normand, Michael Che, Hannibal, Amy Schumer. I was like, it was all, we were all, that was like, back then there was a lot less comedians before the internet, and everyone kind of knew everybody. And, that was the generation, really, was sort of that era. And I'm forgetting a bunch of people, but, Sam Morrell was like a little behind me. And, it's hard to say because it's all within a couple of years.
Yeah.
Where people started. But, there was different cliques. People gravitated towards different people. Me and Nate were really close friends at the beginning. And so, and then it keeps going.
Yeah. I assume you were fans of all those tough crowd comedians, that whole era. That was one of my favorite, the whole New York scene during that show. Fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Just killers.
Yeah, those were the guys we kind of looked up to, Patrice and Bill Burr and Jim Norton and Colin, everyone looked up to, and, Geraldo. I mean, those guys are in my opinion, it's like Geraldo, Patrice. I went to Patrice's last show at Caroline's in New York City right before he had a stroke. And, he looked kind of tired, and it was weird to think in retrospect, he had a stroke like 4 days later. But his last weekend was in New York at Caroline's, and I went and watched him live. And Patrice O'Neal was one of his talent was next level. His talent was so much that he would sabotage himself on purpose to sort of test himself. He was famous for that. There's a famous story, infamous or famous, depending, in Cleveland at Hilarities, where he went in and he walked the entire crowd, like kind of on purpose, because he was so good. He didn't have to do that, but he just wanted to do that. And they canceled the rest of his weekend. Nick, who owns Hilarities, canceled the rest of his weekend because he walked so many people. In comedy, when you do horrible, people just leave. So he was like offending people on purpose. And he would do that at the top of the show, I think, almost to challenge himself to see if he could get out of the hole. He would bury himself in a hole and get out of it. He could do anything he wanted up there. And I think he sometimes chose to do that for his own gratification because he was a sicko. I don't know why he was doing it. But when he wanted to be funny, he just would turn it on, and nobody had more stage presence. Nobody was smarter or funnier. It was incredible to watch. I mean, incredible. Like Patrice O'Neal, you go watch Elephant in the Room which was the special, and then Mr. P was the album he put out after that. Those two are as good as any stand-up album or special ever recorded. Elephant in the Room is a legendary special, and those were the last two he did before he died. And I mean, so guys like him and Burr, not only were we looking up to them, but I now think that they're two of the best to ever do it. Like the body of work that Burr's put out, and it's incredible. And Geraldo, if he would have lived, and then there was a guy, Mike DiStefano, who died early. He was just beginning to become incredible, where comics would come and stand in the back of the room and watch him. That's how you can know. That's how you know a comic's really good, is when other comics watch in the back of the room. When a guy goes up, all the comics will come and watch. Like me going to watch Patrice, or when Burr would come to town before he really, really popped, comics would would go to wherever he was headlining and just like stand in the back and just watch, because you were watching something that was next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always figured. Patrice wasn't on TV more often because he couldn't do the dance to be on TV, or I'm sure he got movie offers, and I think he was in Arrested Development or one of those shows, like a side character or something, but I can't imagine him having to deal with Hollywood in general.
No, yeah, it was The Office. It was The Office.
That's what it was.
Yeah, he was in The Office, and they wanted to give him a bigger part, and he just hated it and didn't want to do it. He actually had Daniel Tosh's show before Tosh on VH1, and it was very successful, and he didn't want to do it anymore, or he maybe asked for like $1 gazillion. And so, I mean, it was a successful show. I mean, he was going on Letterman. You could see, like, when he had that show, this was like way back in the day, and it was the same exact show that Tosh has, doing the same exact thing. And it was popular. It wasn't like it wasn't doing well. He just sabotaged it. Yeah.
So you mentioned TV. You moved to Miami to do some. What got you into doing TV or web TV or that kind of stuff? And I assume you're still doing stand up during all that stuff. But what's the difference? It's got to be a big difference staring into a camera or doing this as opposed to standing in front of people and telling jokes.
To be honest, for me personally, I hate it. I hate having a schedule. I hated having a day job. I hate everything about it. I also don't like acting. I don't like sitting in a fucking trailer all day, waiting. I just, the only thing I really like doing is stand up and podcasting. Podcasting is a new thing, but I happen to really love it. I enjoy it because it's like you get to riff jokes for an hour. Stand up and podcasting to me is the only things I really enjoy doing. Everything else is kind of feels like a job. And taking that job in Miami, I took it because of the money, and it was going to be an experience. And I was also really heartbroken. I broke up with a girl. Well, she had broke up with me, to be honest. That's why I was heartbroken. And she was a comic, and her career was kind of taking off more than mine. So I couldn't handle it. Ouch. So I had to get out of fucking town. So this job offer was there. It just happened to come. It was a brand new network called Fusion that was owned by Disney through ABC News and Fusion, and the network was Fusion, and it bombed real quick. But I took the job, moved to Miami, and and then I've had other gigs, and I had a couple sports shows. I enjoyed those because I was doing sports and I'm a sports fan, but I also didn't like the schedule, and I mean, if I could do anything to avoid having to work for someone or have a set schedule, that's a success for me.
Yeah, me too.
I can imagine. And plus, you're one of the few, and we listen to a shitload of podcasts because we got hours to kill on the road, but there's very few people that can sit down by themselves and speak into a mic for an hour and make us laugh.
And it'd be good. Yeah.
And it'd be good. It's like you, Tim Dillon, like basically by himself. Bill Burr does it, but there's not that many that don't at least have somebody to bounce something off of. Yeah, no, it's not easy. And I mean, I'm trying, it's building and people seem to like it. And I had a podcast before that was like really starting to get very popular. And then, it kind of ended. And we listened to that one a lot on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one became, it's kind of became a cult. Now that it's over, I think it probably is it's like a cult. There's like a cult Mules movies that like not a lot of people know about.
Right.
Yeah.
And because we ended it right when it started to get popular.
Yeah.
Like History Hyenas, by the way.
History Hyenas. Yeah.
If you want to watch it, go find it because it's not really dated.
I didn't even believe it was ending when I heard. Yeah. We didn't know if it was true.
It's like, they're doing a bit. This is not true.
This
you never know
funny.
whether to believe you guys and when not to.
I don't know if
we're talking about the self-destructive streak of comedians. I mean, maybe that has something to do with it.
Self-sabotage. Yeah.
But it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, it was like we're different people, and it was like it was amazing. We made it work for 3 years,
Yeah.
and I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that was that was probably all the juice that was in there, and so sometimes with those things, it's kind of like.
Yeah, I get
It's
it.
better to just kind of walk away than to and it's weird because it was real. Like when we ended it, I remember we had just got to like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and the buzz was really starting. It was really, I just did Rogan for the first time, and we had done some of the other big podcasts, and you could just feel the fan base was really rabid, even though it wasn't big, but you could tell it was about to get really big. Because of how rabid the fans were, but things happen.
I would imagine it would be tough that's like the shelf life of a good band. Basically, it's hard to keep a band together for a long time. And
Are
if
you quitting?
We'll get to that. But if you put two comedians together that are used to working by themselves and doing their own thing, I would imagine after a while you're just like, okay. I mean, we've done this. It's time to move on. I can see how that would happen because you're solitary.
Yeah,
beings, you know what I mean?
I'm upset.
I quit.
Yeah, I mean, it's human. Humans are funny. They're funny, man. Humans are funny. We got egos. We got feelings, emotions. It's a weird thing. It's we have these wants and needs, and it's a tough thing to keep together. It's a tough thing. I think the reason why it worked is because me and him were so different in some ways.
Right.
Like, I'm not sure how much we're actually into each other's comedy outside of Hyenas. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like our comedy's also very different, So, he's obviously more gregarious and silly and fun and lighter. He's a lot lighter. And I'm, I could get borderline fucking, people going, Jesus Christ, like you're fucking depressing me, telling me everything's horrible. So I'm a little more serious. I think mine's a little for older. His maybe younger people enjoy it. So as individuals, and then when we came together, it's just that thing, probably great bands experience where it's like, you just know there was something like, even when we started, there was just something you just knew. You're like, man, there's something in this chemistry that you can't plan for, you can't create by trying. It just is there. And like there's no explanation for it. Kind of like what a laugh is or what good music is. Like chemistry is another one of those things that you're going like, what is that? How do you explain that?
Mm-hmm.
And there is no explanation for it. We had really good comedic chemistry, and we created something unique with that chemistry that was meant to die a violent death, like a rock star.
At least you didn't make that horrible fourth record or something that everybody's like, I should have quit before. Yeah.
Right. Because, hey, look, we're all fucking dying anyway. It's just a matter of when you're going to pull the plug.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
We got to ask about Uncle Jesse. I know that you're a fan.
Yeah.
How did the Stamos thing? It's a Greek thing,
It's a real interesting thing. So my ex-girlfriend was obsessed with him, actually, which is real funny. She was obsessed with him. Like she made jokes about him all the time and like always joked about him. And that I've become friends with him, I feel like is a personal victory for me. It seems like, fucking the universe gave me one. But no, he reached out to me. He's a huge comedy fan. He was really good friends with Don Rickles, very good friend, very close with Don Rickles, and obviously Bob Saget and Dave Coulier. Those guys were stand-ups, and those guys continued to stay friends and are still, Bob Saget tragically passed away, but those guys continue to stay friends. And Stamos just loves comedy. He just loves stand-up. He's intrigued by our process, and he loves jokes, and he loves listening. He listens to podcasts. And so, I made a few jokes about him. I think he heard them. Or Josh Peck is a actor who he listens to my pod, and they're friends because they did a TV show together. And I think maybe Josh Peck turned him on or said, hey, listen to this guy's joking about you. And then I'm Greek too, I think helped. But then he just reached out. He started watching my stuff, and he just, he just thinks I'm really funny. And then we became friends after that. And, it's crazy that he's a really, he's just a down to earth, really nice guy. with that fucking face. And he's also very talented. He's musically talented. I saw him last night with the Beach Boys. It was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he plays with the Beach Boys. He's been playing with the Beach Boys since like the 80s. So
The Beach Boys are my favorite boy band.
oh, dude, they're so good. I mean, the amount of hits. I mean, last night I was just thinking about it, and they kept playing hit after hit after hit. And I'm going, how many fucking hits? I was like, they. And then I went into a K-hole last night about the Beach Boys and how they're popular. They were the only band where their popularity didn't wane during the British invasion. Like a lot of the British invasion, kind of like, the Beatles and whatever other fucking, dirty teeth fucking bands came in, it really like swept the nation, but like the Beach Boys just continued to keep their popularity. They was, there was like an American sound beating back all these commies.
Yeah. Not only that, they influenced the shit out of the Beatles with Pet Sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less. You guys know better than me, but yeah.
That one record, the Beatles were flipping out over Brian Wilson and all the production and all that. Everybody thinks of him as the, just the simple surf songs. But if you get Pet Sounds, that shit gets deep, man. Yeah,
they got some really good music. It's not just those pop, couple of note, big hits. They're good, man, and their sound was unique with that high pitch. And I don't know which one of the Beach Boys that was.
And nobody's more punk rock than Mike Love. Have you seen like his acceptance speech to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? He is just shitting on everybody. It's basically pro wrestling. We're fucking great. You guys are garbage. You should look it up sometime. It is hysterical. He's just a legendary prick, apparently.
I'm gonna check that out today. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out later today because like I'm just obsessed with the Beach Boys right now. Yeah, he's still going. Mike Love's still going up there singing. I mean, it doesn't sound like it used to sound. The guy's 80, but I mean, it just was amazing to see, and hear the sounds and live. But I mean, the band is like half new guys and Stamos but Mike Love's still up there, fucking, he's on the runway. I mean, he's 80. The flight he's ready for takeoff soon.
He's taxiing.
Yeah. It's been said that they're fans of our music. I'm just saying.
It's been said.
Yeah, it's been said. I mean,
who?
I don't remember the dude's name, but he was friends with them, and he did say
that.
This. Yeah, said that they were listening to our music.
Might have just been trying to bang you.
Lying, but that's true.
He's probably trying to bang you, but anyway.
No, but I mean, he probably is. He probably is.
No, that was after
no better feeling.
That was after you banged him when he said that.
Okay, Yannis, you're so awesome to do this with us. We are huge fans of yours. Before I let you go, everybody's dying to know, what is your go-to snack on the road? Is it savory? Is it sweet? What is it?
Oh, God. Go-to snack on the road is whatever godforsaken chain is open.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. The American cuisine is really killing us all. And when you go on the road, when you get outside of a city like Nashville or New York, and it's just, there's no mom and pops, dude. You're eating frozen fried chicken out of a goddamn truck that's microwaved. So it's my go-to is whatever's open. And then you just eat it after a show, whatever Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, Burger King.
Do you eat
garbage? But I'm a savory, not a sweet.
Yeah,
do you eat before you perform?
Never.
Yeah,
never. And if I do, I've made all those mistakes. You eat before you perform. I'm gonna bomb. I'll tell you this right now. It took me a long. If I eat, I will. It's 100% chance I'm gonna bomb.
Yep.
It took me so long to make that connection. Like, all right, the only thing I can eat is a salad with grilled chicken. Like, it has to be light. If I eat anything hearty, if I eat a real meal, I will 100% shit the bed. It's incredible. I have 100% shit the bed rate when I eat a meal before. And it's the same thing with alcohol. If I have more than 2 beers, I will shit the bed. And I have to be clear, and I have to like not be full in order to have a decent show at the very least.
Exactly.
Same.
This is the voice of experience. It probably took a while to get there, because me too. You got to find that ratio, but
same thing. I'll drink a beer while we play, but it's 2 before, no more than that. Or I just know it's going to be a crazy night. If
sometimes you look out and you're like, this is a 3 beer night.
Or they push back the time.
Let's just go ahead and do. Oh, that's
or
always
then a festival will add another show on for you at midnight, and then you're You're like, well, I'm already fucked. So, but yeah, 2 beers before, 1 in between the show, and then you can go crazy in the end, but never eat before the show. Never.
Yeah. You just want to sit and it just doesn't work.
Lay down.
Yeah. All right, Yannis, thanks for doing this with us. You're awesome. Where can everybody find you, your podcast and all that?
We'll put links, but
yeah, we'll put links.
Yeah, just you could, Eric, just go to my Instagram, Yannis Pappas, all one word. Everything you can find everything from there. I'm on the road. Go to yannispappascomedy.com. In December, I still got Jacksonville, Charlotte, and Philly for New Year's Eve coming up. And then January, I'm in Chicago and a bunch of other places. I can't remember. There's a bunch of tour. I'm on tour till May. So just come see me live. Listen to the podcast. It's now called the Yannis Pappas Hour. I'm changing the name from Long Days.
Okay.
So
yeah.
breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. Actually, this is the first time I've mentioned that. We changed the name. The first episode with the new name is up, and it's the Yannis Pappas Hour. I wanted to make it sound more news spoofy, and put my name in the title so it's easier. It was just hard when people would be like, the Yanni Long Days or Long Day, and I was just like, just call it the Yannis Pappas Hour. So check that out, and my specials are there. I have 3 specials on YouTube. 4. You can listen to my album for free on YouTube, which is up there. You can listen to my 2-hour specials and my Comedy Central half hour. They're all on YouTube. So everything's on fucking YouTube. Go just Google my name and have fun. And then write a comment. Make a mean comment. Talk about how close my eyes are together. Call me Cozy Eyes.
All right, Yannis, you're awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. If you ever get to Nashville, man, look us up.
Yeah.
I totally will. I'm going to go listen to your music right now. I'm going to look you up. And this was a lot of fun. So thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Thanks again for doing it, brother.
Thanks, man. Yannis Pappas is my favorite comedian.
Yes, I love that dude. I knew he'd be great. Been trying to get him on for a while. Anyway, enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Did we cheers yet?
Enjoy your cigarettes.